Hello, my crafty friends. I sure hope you're having a fabulous day. My name is Robyn Pitts with Sir Chauncey Rocco Creative Designs. Today, we're going to make these stacked letters with chipboard drawer. So go and grab a cup of coffee and let's get crafting. I've gathered all of the materials to make our stacked letters and chipboard drawer. We're first going to be working on the drawer. For this project, I'm going to be using this beautiful paper collection by Mente. It's called Dear Diary. This came out last year, but it's one of my favorites, and I think it's also perfect for fall. To make the drawer, I used a tutorial by Posh Paper Lady. I will be sure to include a link to her demo in the description box below. Typically, when I create chipboard boxes or drawers, I will attach the chipboard with hinges. However, I found her tutorial much easier and faster. To make the outer casing of our drawer, we will need 2 pieces of chipboard that measure 6.5 by 6.5, and we will need 3 pieces that measure 6.5 by 2 inches. And to save time, I've gone ahead and added score tape, and I've also covered one in cardstock. For the box that goes inside the casing, we will need 1 piece that measures 6 1/8 by 6 1/8. We will need 3 pieces of chipboard that measures 6 1/8 by 1 3/4, and then 1 piece that measures 5 7/8 by 1 3/4. We will also need the following cardstock: 2 pieces that measure 8.5 by 12. We will need 2 pieces that measure 6 1/4 by 12, 4 pieces that measure 3 by 12 inches, and 1 piece that measures 10 7/8 by 10 7/8. So now that I've reviewed the pieces that you'll need, I'm going to clear this off, and we will work on the outer casing for the drawer. Now you want to gather your pieces that measure 8.5 by 12, and we are going to attach them. To save time, I've already attached them, and I did that by using a 1/2 inch score tape and simply attaching it on the 8.5 inch side. So now we have one nice long piece of paper. Next, you want to grab your piece of chipboard that measures 6.5 by 2 inches. I have already covered this with score tape on the front and back, and I'm going to put this right in the center where these seams meet. Okay, you want to make sure that you have an even amount of space on the top and bottom. Next, I'm going to take my piece that measures 6.5 by 6.5 inches, and I'm going to align that right next to the center piece. And I want to make sure that I've given this just about 1/8 inch space in between. Okay, and then I'm going to add the other piece right next to it, making sure that it also has 1/8 inch space. Now I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish these pieces to make sure there is a strong adhesion. Now I'm going to trim off the edges of the paper so that there's roughly a 1-inch border all around. Next, I'm going to miter the edges on the corners, making sure that I leave about a 1/8 inch space between the edge of the chipboard and the paper. So you can measure this, but I'm going to just eyeball it. Now we're going to gently fold the paper up and over on all 4 sides. And I'm going to lift up this score tape because what we want to do is wrap this paper all around. I've added score tape around the perimeter of our page. I've used 2 pieces of 1/2 inch score tape. And so I'm going to take this off. And we're going to work one section at a time. And we're just simply going to bring this top piece down. You want to use your bone folder to get a nice smooth edge. Let's turn this around. Take off the score tape here. Now we're going to do the sides. Before I fold this piece down, you want to fold in these little corner pieces right here. That will help you get a nice clean edge. And then we will fold this over just like so. We'll do that on the other side. Fold in the edges. And then you want to take your bone folder and then gently crease in the center. We're going to bend this gently. I've gone ahead and added double-sided tape on the inside of these panels. I've also prepared our liner. Because this inside area is over 15 inches long, we need an extra long sheet of paper. So for this liner, I have a piece that measures 6 1/4 by 12 inches, and then I've attached a 2 3/4 sheet of paper to make it the length that I needed. And I've simply added this piece on using a 1/2 inch score tape. So I'm going to add a bit of liquid glue on the back of this so that when I attach it, I can make sure that I'm getting it in the right space. That'll give me a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to add this in, making sure that there's an even amount of space on the top and the bottom. And there should be roughly about a 1/2 inch of space on the left and right. I'm going to burnish this well and make sure I spread out the glue. Now that I have the paper attached and it's fully burnished, I can go ahead and crease along the score lines here, and then fold this up, and we have the outer casing of our box ready to go. Now we're going to make the sides of our drawer. I've already completed one piece. Here you'll notice that there's a finished edge, and I have 3 pieces that are raw. And the way I did this was I took a piece of the chipboard. This is 6 1/4 by 2 inches. I did modify this slightly, and I took 1/4 inch off the side. I have this covered with score tape, and then we're going to wrap this piece of paper around so that we'll have a nice finished edge on one side. Because I didn't have a piece that measured over 13 inches, like we did for the cover of our box, I've taken 2 pieces of paper. This measures 3 inches by 12, and I've simply attached them using a 1/2 inch score tape. So I'm going to take off the score tape. Okay, and I'm going to fit this in the center. I'm going to leave about an 1/8 inch space. I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to cut this edge off right here. I'm going to take off the score tape, fold this over like so. And then I'm going to cut off the excess on all sides. Now you will have a seam here, but that's going to be facing the inside of the drawer, so it really won't make a difference. Now we're going to attach the side panels that we've just created to our box. These pieces are going to fit inside just like so. And you want to make sure you have the finished edge on the outside. So what I'm going to do is just dry fit this. I want to make sure that I have just about 1/16 of an inch of space on the outside. And I'm going to do that on both sides. We're going to put glue on 3 sides, and it's going to look like this. So I'm going to use my art glitter glue. I'm going to put an ample amount of glue. Okay, I'm going to fold the top over. I'm going to put it in about 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to make sure that I have it all the way pressed up to the back. I'm going to clear up any excess glue. And I'm going to turn it around to the front to make sure that it's nice and straight. And I see here that I have a little bit more space on the front than I do the back. Okay, before I press down too hard, I want to make sure that I have it exactly where I want it. Okay, now we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. So make sure that looks squared and even. Now I'm going to go ahead and cover this pink paper with the decorative paper, but because I only have 1 pack of the Mente Dear Diary, I had to use it sparingly. So now we have the frame of our box completed. I'm going to set this aside so it can dry, and then I'll start to work on the inner drawer. To make the drawer, the box that slides in and out, we will need a piece of paper that measures 10 7/8 by 10 7/8. We'll also need to score at a 1/2 inch and 2 3/8 on all sides. To save time, I've already done the scoring. Now we'll need to cut out a few of these blocks. In the lower corner here where I've scored, you can see that I've put an X here on these 3 boxes. So we have this piece here, this little tiny corner piece, and a piece here. I've done that on all 4 sides. So we are going to cut up to the second score line. Okay, I'm going to cut this piece out, just like so. And then I'm going to cut up to this second score line over here. And what we're doing is creating tabs to make a box. Okay, and then we're going to cut out this little X here. And then for this tab, what we're going to do is slightly miter it. And we're going to cut a little triangle over here on the side. And this will allow the tabs to fold in better. Okay, so I'm going to do that on all 4 sides, and then I'm going to fold and burnish along the score lines. I've cut out all of the pieces and folded along the score lines. Now we're going to make the box. And to do that, I'm simply going to turn this over, and we're going to take these tabs and glue it to its neighbor, just like so. Okay, and we're going to do that on all 4 sides. I'm just going to glue this tab in just like so. I'm going to get it right up to the score line. I'm going to glue in the tabs on the rest of these 3 sides. I have completed the box, and now I'm going to add in the chipboard. I have this piece here which measures 6 1/8 by 6 1/8. I've just gone ahead and added in some cardstock, and that's going to fit right inside. And that should fit perfectly on the bottom of the box. Now you may find when you cut your chipboard that it doesn't fit exactly. That's okay. You can just go ahead and trim along the sides. You just want to give this a nice burnish. Now we have 4 pieces which measure 6 1/8 by 1 3/4, and I'm going to do a dry fit with these pieces before I glue them down. You may find that you need to trim the edges just a smidge. And this piece I see I need to trim down a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that piece off. Okay, and that fits perfectly. So I'm going to glue these pieces down, and then I'll be right back. Now I have all of the chipboard inside my drawer. I am now going to glue down these flaps. But before I do that, I have mitered each of the corners on all 4 sides, and that will simply make it easier to glue the tabs down. I'm going to put glue on these tabs, fold it over just like so. I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. While I was offline, I went ahead and added the decorative panels to the boxes. So let me give you those dimensions now. This large panel on the outer box measures 6 3/8 by 6 3/8. The side panels here measure 6 1/4 by 1 7/8. This back panel measures 6 3/8 by 2 inches. For the drawer, the outside panels measure 6 inches by 1 3/4. The inside box measures 5 7/8 by 5 7/8, and the inside panels measure 5 7/8 by 1 3/4. Okay, so this piece will just slide in just like so. On the bottom of the box, I am going to leave this plain with the pink paper since you won't be able to see it. I have some decorative hardware that I want to put on, and I'm going to put these little feet on each corner of the box. And I'm going to butt it up to the corner as far as I can. And what I use to glue this on is just regular art glitter glue. I find that it glues fast and it's pretty secure. If you wanted to add in a little additional security, you could certainly add E6000. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these on, and then I'll be right back. Now that our draw is complete and we're waiting for the decorative feet to dry, we can begin working on our stacked envelopes. To make the envelopes, I used 2 digital files by MYSCRAPCHICK. I used the A2 chunky envelope and I cut out 4 of these in decorative cardstock. And I also used the A7 envelope and I cut out 6 of these in decorative cardstock. Each of the files were uploaded into Cricut Design Space and I cut them out on my Cricut Maker. If you don't have an electronic cutting machine, you can use your envelope punch board, and I have 2 different ones here. The 123 punch board also gives you the option of creating a 1/2 inch box, which is what we're using for the A2 chunky envelope. And to make an A7 envelope, you can simply find the card size here. This is A7, and that paper size is 10¼ by 4½. You could also use this envelope punch board. You'll also need 5 pieces of chipboard, or this is a piece of box that I've cut down. I actually prefer the box because it's slightly thicker than the chipboard, and this measures 6 7/8 by 4 7/8. This will be used to stick inside the envelope to give it more depth. If you don't have a box, you can always use 1 or 2 pieces of chipboard the same size. So let's begin assembling our envelope. This is what the file will look like in the MYSCRAPCHICK digital file. I'm simply going to fold along the score lines. Once I fold along the score lines, I'm going to fold these pieces in and then fold this bottom flap up. I'm going to add adhesive to these side flaps here. I'm going to add it on both sides. Now you can also use score tape here if you prefer, and you simply fold this up. Now that we have our envelope complete, we're going to take our chipboard and stick it inside, and then we're going to glue it down. Okay, and this gives the envelope added dimension. Now we're going to work on the A2 chunky envelope, but before we start assembling it, I want to make some adjustments. I'm going to cut off this top panel here. This is the shorter of the 2 panels. You don't want to touch this longer piece. You want to cut only the top part. So I'm going to cut off the first and the second score line, right up to these side flaps. Okay, so we're going to throw this piece away. We've got a nice clean edge. Now we're going to fold along the score lines on all sides. Now we're going to glue the flap up. So I'm going to put glue on the side here. I'm going to line these sides up. Make sure that it's glued right to the score line. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And you should have a nice even square. And then you want to take your bone folder and burnish both sides. This envelope now will become a pocket for us. And so what I'm going to do is glue this envelope to the back side of the A7 envelope. And what this allows us to do is store fun goodies inside. Let me show you the completed envelopes that I've created. This is the first A7 envelope, and this is going to go on the top. I did not include cardboard here. We have this envelope, and the flap is facing upwards, and on the back we have our chunky A2 envelope, and I've used scrap paper from the envelopes to cover the edges. That way when it's stacked, it'll blend in nicely. Here's the second envelope, and this is the other cubby. This is the third one. And this is the last one. So let me bring in the drawer. The feet have now dried completely. I've taken the inside box out because I've already glued the handle on, and this is drying. Okay, now because of the weight of this crystal knob, I did use both art glitter glue and E6000, so that's going to take a little bit of time to cure. So I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to stack our envelopes like so. So this is the front of our drawer. I'm going to take this envelope, I'm going to sit it at an angle. The next envelope will be at another angle. This one will go here. The last cubby will go here. And then our final envelope will go on the top here. So this is what it looks like from the front. And then you have these fun cubbies on the back that you could use to store cards, embellishments, and other small gifts. Okay, so let's start decorating this. I'm going to fast forward this so that you can see some of the decoration process. I have decorated the letters. Now I need to decorate the final letter that's going to go on top, and I have to create a little stand for this. So I'm going to put this to the side. For this envelope, I wanted to have a little curve on the top, and I have gone ahead and put magnets down. I'm going to add in this pretty lace trim. I'm going to put that on either side. Then I have this pretty trim, which is going to go on the top. So I have my trim glued on, and I've covered the magnets. I'm going to attach this flower right here in the center. This will also be our tab to lift up the envelope. Now we're going to create the stand that will go on top of our stack of letters. It's going to go right behind this top letter here. I wanted to have a beautiful display for the final envelopes, and the easel idea was inspired by Paper Dream Designs and my friend Jen Cassell. I'll include their links below. You will need a piece of paper that measures 10.5 by 7. You'll also need 3 pieces of chipboard. 2 pieces will measure 3 by 5 3/4, and then you'll need one that measures 2 3/4 by 5 3/4. So I'm going to turn this over because I want this piece to be showing. So I'm going to lay out the chipboard just like so. I'm going to leave about a 1-inch gap from the top. This is the first 3 and 5 3/4. Then I'm going to take the 2 by 5 3/4 and the 3 by 5 3/4. And you want to make sure that you leave roughly about a 1/8 inch gap in between the chipboard pieces. So I'm going to attach these, and then we'll move on to the next step. I have added the chipboard, and I've also mitered the edges on one side. I did leave one edge straight, and I'm going to fold down the edges, and we're going to cover this just like we did for the drawer. I have attached all of the sides. Now I want to cover these panels with decorative paper. So I have cut the paper the same size as a chipboard. So I have 2 pieces that are 3 by 5 3/4, and I'm just going to attach that. And I don't want to cover up the gap in between the chipboard. We need that so that the chipboard can move freely. And then we have the piece that measures 2 3/4 by 5 3/4. That's going to go right here. And then last we have this top piece here. Now I have all of the decorative pieces glued down. So I'm going to take off the score tape. I'm going to put a little extra glue on these edges here. I'm going to fold this up. Make sure that the edges of the chipboard meet, and then attach this just like so. Now this is going to get glued to the top. I'm going to glue this down. Okay, so I'm going to put this in a slight angle like this. I'm going to take my bone folder and make sure that I burnish this well. And then I'm going to glue my letter on top. Before I add this, I think I'm going to add a little bit more lace to the bottom here. This is my completed and decorated shabby chic stack of letters with chipboard drawer. I just love the way this turned out. I think it is so beautiful and elegant. For a closer look at all of the details in this project, please be sure to view my project share video. I'll include a link in the description box below. This concludes my review of my project. Hopefully I've inspired you with new and creative ideas. If you like this tutorial, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Bye for now, and happy crafting.